Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Learn with Jason. Today on the show, we've got Alex Shyba. How you doing?
I'm good, Jason. How are you? Good to
I'm
be here.
doing great. I did that thing today where I had a few minutes before a meeting, and then I was like, I'll just do one quick thing, and then I was late. So thanks everybody for being patient while I show up late to my own show. So, anyways, Alex, I'm super excited to have you on the show. For folks who aren't familiar with your work, do you want to give us a bit of a background?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a full stack engineer, and I started my career in .NET and back when. So I kind of went through the journey of getting into JavaScript and through TypeScript. That was
Mm.
my gateway technology, and got myself into Jamstack early on, and hasn't I haven't looked back since. The world hasn't been the same since. So
Yeah.
now I'm one of the co-founders and CTO of Uniform. So we are early stage startup or scale up. I don't know how what's the right terminology. So we're doing a lot of work in this space around existing content management and digital experience platforms and
Hmm.
modern front ends, content commerce, all of this good stuff.
Very cool.
So
Yeah. So there's a lot to talk about in this space. So I'm gonna start with a general question and let you guide me down a topic hole here. But what we are talking about in general is this idea of edge functions, right? And so the technology is kind of not the point. What we're really interested in is the outcome here. So from my perspective, one of the biggest challenges we've been trying to solve is you have the what's the somebody had a really good phrase for this. I think it was slow versus stale trade-off, right? So
mhm.
as we've been building for the web, you have this if you want ultra fresh content, you have to effectively make all of the queries, do all of the rendering, all this work has to happen at request time. And the problem is that that makes things slow, right? And so
And
then
complicated. Yeah.
and complicated and flaky, and there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. But then you've got this other problem, which is that if you do all the work ahead of time, you get a whole bunch of benefits. Like, this is why I think people got really excited about the Jamstack approach in general. You're removing work, you're removing flakiness, you're reducing your operational overhead and your deployment costs and all these things. But then content can be stale, right? So you've got this longer lag between when something updates and when somebody sees it on their screen. And so what we're seeing is this sort of at the highest level, this sort of discussion about the trade-offs of like, should you do everything in the server so that the data is always fresh, or should you do everything ahead of time with pre-rendering and building early so that your content is very fast, right? So fresh versus fast, or slow versus stale, depending on whether you're talking about the upsides or downsides. What I found interesting when we start talking about edge functions is that some of those trade-offs go away. And that feels like a big shift, right? So I'd love to
Mhm.
hear, it sounds like this is a space that you've been really stuck into at Uniform. So I'd love to hear sort of what your take is on this evolution and where the lines for the trade-offs are starting to be drawn.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we went from this heavy server origin centric world where we had I come from the Microsoft space, so think like very expensive, heavy web servers that not cheap to scale. Then
Mm-hmm.
you look into kind of the global customer footprint perspective, some brands that actually want to reach everybody globally, that becomes even more expensive. And then you add state into it, where you actually have to have a centralized like session store, like that kills everything. That kills performance, that kills scale. And then you have traffic spikes, you need to scale out. Sometimes you have
Mm-hmm.
cold starts that are multiple minutes. That's the reality of, like, I come from that space with like heavy enterprise investments, right? And Jamstack kind of gave completely fresh perspective. And when we went on the completely opposite side of the spectrum, we're like forget about servers, let's pre-render everything and push Jamstack as hard as we can to all the way to the other side of the spectrum where everything is pre-rendered, there's no servers to run stuff, and you have essentially elasticity of CDN and all of these good benefits that we all aware of. And I felt like now we kind of reevaluating and trying to expand the use cases of Jamstack and edge functions is that enabling technology, not just because it's cool, but it's actually creates a no compromise approach to this sort of architecture where you have the speed, scalability of Jamstack, but you have the dynamicism of traditional server-side rendering technology without actually needing a server to render stuff. So it's almost like we adding extra level of transformation. We have ability to obviously now do edge rendering, which is another kind of avenue to explore, and with interesting challenges as well. But with what I'm excited about is that this particularly edge function context of Jamstack, it extends the use cases of Jamstack. So it makes the experiences more dynamic. So it's about making sure we can serve fresh content, but also we can personalize and individualize each web page if we need to. So if we have the right data and we can write rules configuration, we can actually transform these traditionally static web pages into dynamic experiences without paying the cost of going all the way back or in the middle of the spectrum of let's provision a bunch of node servers and run SSR again. Let's not go back in time. Let's move forward. So that's what I'm super excited about it. It's a very it progressively makes your existing Jamstack investments better, and probably can help bring some skeptics on board as well that maybe held back on the Jamstack train a little bit.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of conversations lately about Jamstack in general, and I think I've made some jokes in the past about like how the way we've talked about Jamstack, it's just a feeling, right? It's whatever you want it to be. But I think that was pretty hyperbolic, and at the core of it, I think the big thing in Jamstack is this shift away from needing big heavy servers to run a web experience, right? And so the piece that feels really exciting to me is that one of the major benefits of moving to Jamstack has always been that you've got one web developer with one set of skills that is able to run an entire web experience. You can, with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript knowledge, you can get something built, pushed up to GitHub, it automatically builds, it goes live, it's resilient, it's auto-scaled because it's going out to a CDN because you're using one of the Jamstack providers. It's got better security because there's no server to hack. You don't have to learn how to harden a server or put up a firewall, any of those things. You don't have to worry about like high availability because a CDN is about the hardest thing out there to DDoS. So, you're not worrying about, well, how do I get my Kubernetes set up to auto scale, or what are these things? You don't have to worry about operational overhead in terms of costs. You don't have your DevOps team basically gets to say, yeah, that's fine. We're going to worry about the mission critical services. Like the website doesn't need a full-time DevOps engineer, right? So it's a huge win for companies. But then there's this trade-off there was this trade-off where your only real option if you wanted like truly dynamic stuff was to either not use the Jamstack for that, and for like business intelligence, for business logic, that makes sense. Build an API. That's your proprietary. That's the thing that your business is valuable for. Right. But when it was something like, we need to hit this API and then do some transformation and then kind of show the user something that's customized to them. Yeah, you're reaching for a serverless function, right? And a serverless function is great, but a serverless function is single region, or at least was until recently. You are then sending somebody in Australia halfway around the world to US East 1 so that they can get that data processing done and then transfer back. So you've got these delays. You've got this sort of limitation of like serverless functions can only do so many things. And it starts to be like, okay, well, maybe Jamstack's not like the full web experience solution because you do need servers sometimes, and it's not always the right idea to use a serverless function. So with the introduction of edge compute, that argument gets a little bit less impactful because now we've got this ability to execute code right where the user's requesting from, like at the edge on the CDN. And we can do those little things like make a data request and personalize the page and all this stuff. And we're transforming static assets, not fully rendering. We don't have to go, like if I'm transforming a Next.js site that's pulling in data from WordPress and Sanity, Contentful, Fauna, whatever third-party system, if you're using like get static props on Next.js, all that data gets pulled in and then put into the page props, which are then passed down as JSON. So if I'm doing transformation at the edge, I don't have to go hit Contentful or Sanity or WordPress. I have to just look at the page props, transform those, and I'm getting personalization on the edge, right?
Yep.
And so suddenly, a lot of these arguments about fast versus fresh are no longer a versus, right? And so to me, that's the part that really got me excited when edge compute came out. It feels like a sort of a watershed moment. We're going to see a like before edge architecture and an after edge architecture. And I think new players in this space, like from the, there's the Dino, there's Cloudflare Workers, I feel like Bun is working on this too in their own kind of way. We've got a lot of people who are looking at like, well, what does it look like if all the work happens right at the edge and you don't ever need to ship server logic, right? Just a really, really interesting spot. So
Definitely.
when you're looking at this, I know, so maybe we should talk a little bit just for folks who aren't familiar about what Uniform does and like why this is so relevant to your space.
Yeah, definitely. We have maybe easiest way to think about it is that that missing piece in between you may not realize you need before you you see our demo. We help bring this whole, like Jamstack elevated this this need for composable architecture, which is about true best of breed systems coming together, right? And that means you pick the best, almost like a Unix philosophy versus Windows philosophy, where instead of getting something from one vendor in a box where it has a CMS, a rendering engine, maybe marketing automation, and a bunch of other things, analytics, you assemble your own stack. So it means that you can achieve more agility in terms of just different moving pieces, swapping components around, but you are the architect of your own stack in a way,
right,
in this composable space. So this is where we play in as an enabling technology to help brands embrace this mindset and lower the tax of entry, because we know, like Linux is not for everybody, right? So there is definitely that kind of translates into this sort of architecture. Composable requires a lot more thinking up front. Who's going to be the mediator? Who's going to be the orchestrator in this architecture? We have content distributed, you have commerce system, you have content management system. Maybe you have two content management systems, right? And the larger the companies, the more CMSs they have in their ecosystem. So how does it all fit together? And where brands can have a way to evolve their architecture without throwing it away every 5 to 7 years, when they can experiment with the different components. And then, so we that stitching piece that prevents you from building your own glue code and then having somebody else inherit and dealing with that within the organization. So we help you be in the thing in the middle, and also help close the gaps with headless, where traditionally tools for marketers such as personalization and A/B testing were not really fully integrated in the content management, headless content management systems. So that's where we started the company, as that painkiller and gap closing technology to provide that missing piece. So you can assemble a stack out of this best of breed technologies that is headless, modern, but functionally you're not compromising. You have all these tools for business users as well, and you empower not just developers but marketers. So this is where we build this engine that allows you to run personalization as fast as possible on the edge of your choice, and and then you bring the fuel for that engine externally, either through some external systems like customer data platforms, or maybe HTTP request is a nice source of that data, which has a lot to actually act on. So this is where we landed on the true edge-based execution, where what if we run this layer without going anywhere, and depending on any system, essentially have everything ready, content, configuration, all pre-baked, and all we need is a lightweight transformation layer at the edge to make the magic happen. So kind of how to get to 100 milliseconds or less time to first byte for a personalized page. That's really the only way to do it. So you don't pay the cost of a render, you don't pay cost for content fetch, which could have unpredictable parameters, and you can scale with the elasticity of content delivery networks, but retain the dynamicism of traditional. So that engine is a part of our value proposition, together with larger composition engine that allows you to build pages without development involvement, but to stay true to the headless nature. So we don't have front end in the box, but we have an API for you to render anywhere you'd like.
I got you. Yeah. And you touched on something that I think is really, really valuable. And it's part of, what this shift to a Jamstack architecture means, is this idea of combining the best tool for the job, instead of trying to find one tool that's pretty close and then like shoehorning it into a bunch of different applications. And when you're talking about people needing to roll over their stack every 5 to 7 years, in my experience, that's a direct result of people trying to use things for purposes they're not built for. And you start getting these sort of, what I don't know what you'd call them, barnacle layers on top of systems. So if you've got something that's built to be a blog and then somebody hacks it to be a forum, it's not that it was bad at being a blog. It's just that it's not good at doing all the things that aren't blogging. And so you find yourself with these like complicated workarounds, and those all become in-house code that when the person who built it leaves, or if they transfer to another team, now you've got people who've never seen that code before. It's not documented. There's all this mystery, and it just gets hard to maintain. So, and then that turns over 2 or 3 times. So the first person builds it, a couple years later, they move somewhere else and somebody inherits it, right? A couple years later, they move somewhere else. Now you're 3 to 4 developers removed from the person who originally built that code. So it's really easy to just declare bankruptcy and say, look, this is legacy code. We don't really know how it works. It's going to be faster to build this thing over. But if you're looking at it from a composable standpoint, if you treat your services as composable and they all have these really clear API boundaries, your blogging system should be the best in class blogging system out there. And that's going to be based on your needs. Are you a really developer focused company? Sanity or Contentful is going to be great. Are you like coming over from WordPress? Keep WordPress. Use your WordPress blog as a headless API and plug that into your layer, right? But then when you need a forum, go get a composable forum system. Don't try to make WordPress or Sanity into a forum, right?
Yeah.
And by doing that, what we get is like, instead of having to declare stack bankruptcy, we can declare tool bankruptcy. We go, okay, we've outgrown the capability of this tool. We're going to switch out our blog from WordPress to Contentful. And that's going to give us XYZ flexibility. And that choice doesn't require you to throw away your front end. It doesn't require you to throw away all of the other systems that you've built. It just lets you rip and replace the one component that needed to be replaced. And I think that's such a magical thing to consider, because it means that like you end up with sort of the ship of Theseus. And for people who aren't familiar with that story, it's the idea that over time, if a ship gets all of its pieces replaced, is it still the same ship? Well, you get the stack of Theseus here. Like, okay, over time, each of the components of this website are going to evolve and get replaced, get rebuilt, but they get done one component at a time. So you've always got the same site, the same experience. It's just constantly evolving and getting replaced. And that means, as you said, it's now incremental. It's not like, okay, stop everything, no feature work. We're going to burn this thing down and greenfield it so that we have a usable tech stack. That means that we're going to have this slow 6 months to a year of like doing all of the work required to get the full stack replaced and rolled out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You get to like, hey, let's fix this one thing. It'll take us a few weeks to rip that piece out. The rest of business is as usual. And you never see those slowdowns for these major rewrites and rebuilds. That to me is such a game changer. And a lot of that comes in because of this ability to stitch things together, as you're saying. And the less in-house custom code you're writing to like make services work together, the more you're focusing on just the pieces that you need to write in-house. And that means you're building more value, not more tech debt.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We've been saying this like as an industry, like focus on the solving the right problem, or like solve your custom problems, like that business value generating problems. But I felt like reflecting on past decades, it's kind of it's left to be a promise, right? There's only a few brands that kind of crack that nut of always innovating and putting the budgets where it actually matters. A lot of folks in the enterprise space still stuck like keeping the lights on, and like hoping that their next upgrade of their digital experience platform is going to give them all the answers.
Right.
And it's about changing mindset, and about what I like about this movement of like let's stick to composable architecture and embrace it. It's harder to repeat mistakes from the past of building another monolith, right? And building something that's not sustainable. Like having one of the reasons why we started Uniform is we've seen so much waste in this space. Millions are spent, and then mediocre results are there, and then like you really not innovating. So that it needs to be. It's a different approach that's required, and I think a lot of that element of like make having like the strong foundation of like static site generators. It's great, the solid foundation we can build upon and incremental and make it better by adding the elements of this edge transformation logic, where we'll have answers. Where do I run my redirects? Where do I run my business logic that redirects to a certain region? Like that requires ad hoc programmability, and now we have an answer to that, and you don't have to keep your server's infrastructure in place just to keep that running by business logic somewhere in your .NET code or somewhere else. Now you have ways to properly modernize things and do it more incrementally. But this is super exciting times. I feel like we are now have a chance of having qualitatively different architectures and different outcomes for businesses with this approach.
This gets me so excited. Like the chat, if you've watched the show before, you've probably seen me get really excited about this. We've done a lot of episodes around edge functions and what makes them so cool, and why this shift toward this type of architecture is so amazing. So let me do this. I'm going to just drop a link to a previous discussion about this stuff, because otherwise I'm going to spend this whole episode waxing philosophical, and I really, really, really want to make sure we have time to build. We are about 25 minutes into the stream here, so I'm going to go ahead and switch us over into the pair programming view. So give me just a second to get to that view here. And before we get started, I'm going to do a shout out to our captioning. We've got Amanda here today doing all the live captioning from White Coat Captioning. And that is made possible through the support of our sponsors. We've got Netlify, NX, and New Relic all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people, which I very much appreciate. And just a reminder for all you companies out there, I am still looking for another sponsor. So if you need you need to get your name in this little list here, look at all these great companies. This could be you. Hit me up. Let me know. We were talking today to Alex Shyba. You can find Alex on the old Twitter. And if you want to watch along with the captions are on the homepage of the site, learnwithjason.dev, as always. And I just shared a link to all the episodes about edge functions. We've got a good collection here. This one specifically, I think, is a really good one. This is Sunil Pai at Cloudflare, and me talking about just kind of how this move to the edge is really powerful. Highly recommend getting out there, watching that. That's the wrong button. Let me move this off screen, actually. All right, so Alex, at this point, I've got no idea what to do next. So before we started, I cloned a repo that you sent to me that was a starter repo, and that's all I know. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this one. What should I do next?
Right. So I think One thing we can do, like maybe more gentle introduction of Netlify edge functions. Maybe we can deploy like a hello world edge functions on a static file, like have an index.js and have an edge function in front of it, just so we kind of have a common base before we go into more of an opinionated starter kit.
So not in here, like start another one.
Yeah, start a new repo.
So we'll call this edge functions hello world personalization. Move into it. I'm going to get init, and then I will let's build it out from here. So I'm going to start here. We'll do an index.html, and let's put this together. Is there anything specific you want me to have on this page for the hello world?
Just let's make sure it's static message hello world works.
Okay. And so we'll just do a hello world. All right. So then if we run the Netlify dev command, it's going to pick up that we've got an index.html. It spits it out for us. And now we make changes. They show up on a refresh. So you wanted to then set up a edge function?
Yeah, let's do an edge function that maybe overrides this and returns something completely different in response, where we completely hijack response and return completely different message.
Okay.
Netlify has pretty cool examples repo where it's just cool getting started. So if folks want to check it out, check out edge-functions-examples.netlify.app. Some really cool stuff to get started. Like this example, exactly.
Okay, so hold on, let me edge functions examples.netlify.app, just making sure that ends up in the show notes and in the chat. So I've got my hello world here, which literally does nothing but return a response that says hello world. So let's get it configured. Doing all this from memory, so we're going to see how well this goes today.
That's impressive.
Let's go. Path is going to be here, and the function is going to be hello world. All right, have I written enough edge functions in the last few days to memorize this syntax entirely? Let's find out. I'm going to stop and restart so we pick up that edge function.
Yeah. And I've noticed that it now detects and restarts, like after you start modifying the function, now you have a pretty fluid experience.
Once it picks up the initial edge function, yeah. So because this originally was set up with only that static server, it wasn't listening on the edge function stuff. But now that we've set one, whenever we make changes, it will pick up automatically. So we can do a hello chat, come back out here, refresh, and now that it's actually reloaded, we see the hello chat.
Nice. So we completely took over request response model with this. This is what you used to do in like a web server, where you plug in some sort of pipeline and do your magic and then modify response. Maybe you end up redirecting, maybe you end up injecting more stuff. But you couldn't do this before. But now this runs on every edge node, as far as I understand. So it's like fully integrated with the CDN itself. It's not like another origin. This is literally sits in front of your CDN node, which is
right.
That means latency is minimal.
Right.
But you have all the power of JavaScript to do whatever you'd like here.
Exactly.
That is awesome. One fun thing we can do, maybe instead of hijacking the response, maybe there's one more example that talks about transformation of. This is kind of more in line with where we're going. What if we have a static page? It's generated through Next.js export, and we're doing some post-export fun on it, such as manipulation of the actual HTML source. So maybe we do like upper text, our existing static HTML, so we can transform it instead of doing it kind of this way. Maybe we just do like uppercase of existing HTML. So we have access to the whole request model and Netlify Edge context, which gives us some good goodies for our future fun as well.
Gonna need to install Netlify functions so that we have access to the Oh no, we're in Dino. What am I doing? I don't need to install anything because we use URLs. So scratch that. We're just gonna run this thing.
Nice.
Okay. So what I will do though, because I want the Dino autocomplete, is I'm gonna run Netlify recipes list, and then I think it's called VS Code. Yeah. So Netlify recipes VS Code is gonna put together a settings file for me, so that Dino is happy, right? And it'll start telling me Dino things instead of running standard like JavaScript linting, which is mostly the same but a little bit different. And we want the Dino specific stuff. So in here we've got our request, and so what I want to do is get my response, which will be await. So I need to async this, and I can do context, which is the Netlify context, and I'm going to run next to get the actual response. And this, if we go with the const text, is this going to do what I want? I feel like this is going to do something different than I want because we're going to convert the HTML into text. But then what we can do is do our new response will be text to uppercase, and we'll send back our response. Okay, let's try that and see what happens. Oh, it does work. Wow.
Nice.
Fascinating.
Now we're shouting at people.
That's cool that worked.
Yeah, impressive memory. I wouldn't be able to do this without the some sort of sample on the side.
The recipe file just created this VS Code settings for anybody who is interested in seeing what happens under the hood, just so that you don't have to do it yourself. And that gives us like import maps and stuff and the pieces that we need so that we are able to just use this without having to install types and stuff like that.
That's cool. Very cool. Yeah, I've had actually this question: how do I do this with TypeScript? Because TypeScript was shouting at me on line 1.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's a helpful thing that we do. Probably a little DX boost that we could have would be to once you run any edge function, if we detect it, we should be like, hey, do you want to add VS Code settings? And then we could say, we could just automatically do that. But yeah, well, baby steps, right? This stuff is still pretty dang new. So, all right, so now we're transforming content, right? And the thing that's really cool about this is if I come in here now and I say something different, it automatically picks up what's going on. And then we can even do a little bit more where we've got like the geo here, where like I can get the city will be context.geo.city, right? And then I can do something like, let's see, const new text equals, is this going to do what I want? Let's find out. We're going to do text plus city. And then we'll send back new text. And does that do what I want?
Maybe geo is undefined because I don't know. Whoa.
Sorry, it's because I was trying to do it before it reloaded, so okay. I was refreshing early. But yeah, so here we go. So now we've got
picks up your geo headers even if you're running locally. That's pretty cool,
right? It's pretty dang cool stuff. So this is some really powerful stuff that we can do to figure out where, like, do I want to personalize? Would I like to show a thing? Like I just built this demo where I have to actually go through and like make a little article about this. But what it does, if my internet will cooperate, come on, internet, running too many things all at once here. So this is a little demo that if you want to try this, chat, you can go hit that URL and it'll give you, it should show a dot where you are on this map when you open it up. And that's just it's a quick personalization thing that you can do. So if you're building any kind of service, like, yeah, go get it done. And that code is github.com, jlangsdorf, mapbox here. And it's, like I said, this is work in progress. So please ignore the man behind the mirror. Man behind the curtain. Man in the mirror. That's a Michael Jackson song. But so here we go. We've got some really cool stuff going on here.
Yeah, and like think about it. Traditionally, what does this mean? You need a server, you need a service, probably. You need to go and get your geo detection. That's free. That's right on the request, right? It's that means that it works as fast as possible. And probably if we deploy this, we should enjoy comfortable time to first byte of this page for real. Maybe should we?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. We can get init. We've already got it get initted. So I'm going to git add everything. We'll git commit and say POC push. And then I'm going to GitHub repo create. I want to use this local repository. And I'm going to call it the same thing that I've called it here. So give it that name. Off it goes. It's public. Add a remote. There we go. Yes, yes, yes. And then what I'm going to do is I screwed up my auth somehow, so the learn with JSON org doesn't show up the way I want it to on Netlify, and I've been too lazy to like log out and log back in and figure out what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to create a new site, import an existing project, going to use GitHub. Don't need Netlify's org today, so we'll skip that. And back we go to learn with JSON, and then I can say personal. That should get me enough. Edge functions, hello world personalization. Great. Can deploy the site. And this should build, let's see, it's a first build, so let's say under a minute here.
Yeah. Builds again faster and faster. I'm loving where the space is evolving.
Yeah, it's been really, really nice.
So yeah, this personalization aspect is very. Now we're kind of approaching that as developers personalizing the page. But there is a larger opportunity here. It's like, what if we took all of this power that we're about to go and deploy and put in the hands of the non-technical business users, so they can activate these capabilities running with all this special sauce without developer involvement? That would be something.
It looks like we got a bit of a backlog here on the build. Oh, here we go. A lot of people pushing right now, so it must have had a bit of a build queue. So onwards. And now, while we're waiting for this to build, which will take just a couple, yeah, we're already to the edge functions bundling, so off we go. You know what? By the time I was going to get to my question, we're already done. So, so let's just go ahead and check out the live site here. You're done. What are you doing? There it is. And here is our live site. It's updated, and everybody can go and look. Seeing some subs in here today. Thank you so much for the subs. Cynthia, Locky T13, and Charlie Devs for the gift sub. Appreciate that a lot. But yeah, there we go. You can go and check this out. This is a deployed site. It's personalizing at the edge. You should see your city listed here when you open this URL. And again, it should be nice and fast. Yeah, Tony, you can't use the please hold. It's too slow. We need a turbo please hold for city undefined. I wonder if there's a geo restriction where like I've never tried this out of a metro area, so I don't know what this happens if you're in like a suburb. So that's a good, okay, fallbacks needed, but yeah, so you know, definitely
San Francisco, it works.
4G in the French countryside. Oh, I wonder if 4G like cell phone towers don't give the same geo data. Interesting. That's an interesting thing to go poke around on. Yeah, worked in South Carolina. Love it, love it, love it. All right, so we've got a hello world here. We're doing some text transformation. We're doing some personalization, but obviously this is pretty heavy-handed. So what should we do next? Like, what's our next move here?
Yeah. So this is where I think we have an opportunity to take this mental model and apply it to maybe a more realistic website. You probably have a framework, meta framework like Next.js running the show, right? So you imagine you're running in static mode and you want to take advantage of this goodness, but you also want to make sure this is configurable and can be activated on any component, not just kind of globally per page and by business user without code change. So this is where we can go back to our starter, but before we do, let's go ahead and create uniform project. And if you don't have a new account, we can sign up. We have a free account, so uniform.app or .dev, sign up.
Sign up.
From here, yep, we gotta start from scratch.
Let's see, we'll use GitHub.
Let's see.
And here we go. All
These are
right.
optional, just, yeah, agree to our beautiful privacy policy. And so what happens, we spin up new project, and because this is a new account, we get you an Hello World starter added to it by default. So the very first project you have here will have the Hello World starter with single page, single component, and some personalization already enabled
Okay.
out of the box. So we can go into that and explore how it's all set up. So yeah, lots of onboarding things. So first things first here, we have an integration. Every starter is an integration. So we can go and actually wire up our app front end by going into integration settings and find that Hello World starter that was installed. Yeah, Hello World starter. And what we have here is ability, we already installed it. We can open that on StackBlitz, so we can even fast track this and just check out how this works without even pulling anything down locally.
Yeah. And so I've already got here, right? This is my,
yep.
Okay, so I'm going to close the hello world so that we are focused on this one. And so I already have this, but I need to then generate my environment variables. I assume I need to do this off screen.
Okay. You can do it. It's going to be read-only API key.
Okay. All
no
right.
harm in that.
So we've got our API keys here. They have been copied. Good.
Yeah.
Good. And then
let's get them in the env file. Yeah, this is kind of just, we already CD'd into that directory. And this is a slightly modified starter. This actually has the
hackers, you dirty hackers
already in there. So we can skip a few steps, but the one that is on not on our screen, it's more vanilla. It doesn't have Netlify edge function, but we'll have a little bit more extra, but we'll walk through that process. So we're ready to npm run, npm install, npm run dev.
Okay, so let me directory. npm install. What have I done? Oh, I'm in the wrong thing. So we need to get back into the Netlify edge function Next.js starter, run npm install. There we go. And then I'm going to run Netlify dev.
Yep.
And it picks up that it's a next site. So it's going to run all the pieces that we need. And then it'll start the edge functions as well for us.
Yep. So first things it's doing is downloading what's known manifest. This is personalization configuration that the starter ships with. So it gets bundled within the app. So when you run personalization, you don't really need to go back to, have some TypeScript fun here.
Implicitly has an any context. Okay, so we'll come back here and we will fix that so we can make this. We need to do some of these. So we'll make that a request and then we'll make this one context, and we're going to get that from, do you have the Netlify? Oh wait, I already have this in my clipboard history actually. Maybe I'm not going to do that. Maybe don't know what's in my clipboard history. So let's instead go back to here, copy it from here, and then drop this up at the top. And so that'll do that for us. And then I'm going to run that Netlify. So there we go. Now our edge functions are happy. We can come back out here and reload.
All right,
There,
something
it's
is
compiled.
happening.
Okay. All right.
Boom.
Things have happened.
Welcome. So what you see is default content, and we can trigger personalization by just hitting that link, and all that link does, it adds query string parameter into our page. So let's do that. You can see it says launch, and now we see completely different content, completely different here. This could be completely different component if you wanted to. So that's personalization action. The signal that we're using there is query string based. It's one that marketers use a lot, UTM campaign stuff. And essentially, the transformation takes place now with the context of now we're running locally, we're running in dev through Netlify dev. So this would run also when we statically export the site and run it off Netlify as well. So let's take a look how it's put together. So this is where we can enter our context middleware function. So this is that function that actually does the magic. And first things first here, we just making sure we don't run this request on non-page requests, because if Netlify sits in front of all our static resources, this is not pretty, but that's the most effective way we found to ignore making sure we only run a request when page requests are happening, and making sure it's only happening on gets and not on posts. So that's why we short circuiting on when we're entering that. There's probably a better way of doing it, but we couldn't
So one
find a more
idea,
elegant way.
one idea for folks who are looking at other ways is we have access to the headers as well. So we could check the content type and make sure that it's application HTML. We could potentially send custom headers that say, like, X use uniform and set that to true. There are a lot of ways that you could dig into that are but this is a perfectly valid way to do it. You're just checking for these. The trick will come if you added like a .xml for a RSS feed. You'd have to remember to come in and edit this, or not if it's not doing anything.
It's probably something you need to deal with for like targeting of all this edge function logic. You probably need to figure out your own way of where do we activate certain logic on which requests. So that's something to keep in mind. You don't want to be over processing heavy and process every single like request, even static request, if you not intend to. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And then what we do is create edge context. So edge context contains that configuration, line 23, that necessary configuration describing the rules, the personalization rules on how do you want to personalize. So that's a part of that manifest JSON that gets bundled into it, and that's something Uniform generates and build. So that's that describes how you want to personalize. And we need an original response from Netlify, and then we run our handler to post-process that response with our own special sauce items here. And you can see here we run it through a handler, and then we give it back to Netlify and return in response. And here we just log if we actually process requests. So it's just helpful to troubleshoot, making sure pages are getting actually processed. So there's some logging in place here. And that's pretty much it. So that's how we return modified response body. And what's missing here, we're trying to sort out how to actually re-enable compression, because we lose compression at this point. So the page comes back without gzip or broadly. So that's that extra piece that we'll be adding into this example function, making sure you're not losing that.
The Dino team, I think, just shipped support for that. So I believe, I think that was an issue early on, but I believe that is no longer an issue. So it should be possible today to get that working. I don't know exactly what the steps are. We'd have to look that up, and that is not our goal for today. So just know that it's possible. And if you can't figure it out, DM me. We'll get you sorted.
Awesome, that's great. So that's something you have to activate once, and now every component you drop on this page, every new page you create, you have access to all this logic, right? That you've activated once. So you can think about it. This is new feature release, and then you enable business user to actually put this feature to work, which we can do inside of uniform Canvas interface, where we actually manage compositions and components and manage all of this configuration.
Yeah.
So yeah, this personalization, this is where it starts. We only have one signal, and that's how we personalize. You need to have at least one signal, and kind of like Seinfeld moment, signals, Jerry, signals. You need a signal. And I love Seinfeld. That's why if there's an opportunity to plug in Seinfeld joke, I will. So you build the signals out of criteria. They could be based on query string, cookie, geodata that we push into quirks. So we'll revisit quirks once we activate geo-based stuff. But this is as simple as it gets. You have it's free. You have a HTTP request. You have data on that request. You put that data to work. So every time UTM campaign equals launch, we have score 50 added to our visitor profile, and that allows us to then instruct Canvas, our composition tool, which component do we want to show in this criteria.
Okay.
So this is configuration, and then we put it to work inside Canvas screen, where we actually manage our homepage composition.
Awesome.
So
Okay.
let's go into yeah. Does this make sense, Jason? So we can also modify this criteria if we wanted to.
I get it, but I want to repeat it back just to make sure that I'm understanding exactly how this works. So when we talk about a signal, personalization is one of those things that it gets very complex very fast, right? So, right now we have one signal, but you can imagine if we were trying to build out e-commerce, I would have lots of signals. There would be whether or not I'm interested in, men's clothing or women's clothing, whether or not I'm interested in summer or winter clothing, whether or not I want like sporty stuff or like high fashion stuff, and so many other things, right? And so each of those is its own signal, right? Like every time I click on something, I'm giving you a hint as the site that I'm interested in a thing. So if I open a like pair of leather wingtip shoes, you could get the hint that, okay, I am looking into high fashion men's shoes, right? And so each of those could boost my signal, and my signal could be, say, +10, right? So we've got a visitor score. So if I open up, then the next thing that I open up is like a, some Balenciaga hoodie or whatever. Okay, now you've got like another high fashion signal, but now it's like streetwear, right? Okay, great. Now we've got different signals. And so you now know pretty confidently that I'm more interested in fashion than other things because I've clicked on more than one thing that gets into that high fashion thing. So you can nudge high fashion things up the list. And because I looked at shoes, because I looked at men's shoes, you can maybe just experiment. Maybe you nudge the shoes a little higher on the list. Maybe you nudge the men's stuff a little higher on the list. And that is personalizing. But then if I'm like, actually, well, I was just looking at that because it was a cool looking shoe. What I'm really interested in is hats. And I go click on 4 hats, then my hat signal gets higher. And now you're personalizing hats up higher, despite the fact that I'm still giving you signal about like, well, I want high fashion. I want, these things. But, by using signals, we're not saying you don't have to build a custom page each time, right? You can kind of say, these are the multivariate pieces that cause somebody to, it's more of like a radar chart or like a, it's a lot of different scores. It's not one personalization score. And that's what really makes this stuff, first, extraordinarily powerful, and second, extraordinarily hard to do in a performant way. Because if you've got multiple scores, that means everybody who's looking at a page is looking at a 100% bespoke page after they've given a few signals, right?
Yeah, it's completely individualized, and based on the signals can be weak, right? Can be strong. If you checked out a couple of product pages, one thing, but what if you favorited a couple of products? That's maybe something you want to add 25, 30 on the score. If you add a product to cart, that's even stronger signal. So depending on your use case, you can create a whole strategy out of that. And yeah, I remember you and Tim geeked out about that in the past. Pretty much you you create your own, it's canvas where you can start really small. If you just run landing page in UTM campaign personalization, you can. If you really want to get in more nuanced signals that are based on behavior, so and you can really, it's a framework you can build on and get progressively. It's crawl, walk, run, and Signal. This is kind of very much starting point for that.
Cool.
So,
yeah.
Thanks. This helpful background, and it helps to run it through your prism as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, with stuff like this, especially because we're talking about how just complex this stuff is, if you've never actually worked through something like this, for devs who've never tried personalization, how would you start? Like, what would you do first, right? And I honestly don't know what I would have done had I not had the conversation with Tim about signals, because I probably would have done something completely different, like having I need to build out like different variants of the store, and then you just personalize the best you can by redirecting people to the right page. But this idea of being able to get, richer signals based on somebody's behavior means that we can make better decisions and give people better results, right? So that is pretty dang cool. And Tim just said in the chat, you can pre-personalize based on like not having signals. So geodata. So I was talking about winter versus summer line. We could use geo to figure out what hemisphere you're in and know what season is happening in which months for that season. And if you're in summer, show you the water sports. And if you're in winter, show you the snowboards and the skis.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
All right. That's a cool use case. Let's do that. So we do that with quirks, and quirks is kind of like arbitrary key value pair that gives us something. And in this project, I don't think we have any quirks. We might.
I don't think we set any, because I saw a object for it.
There we go. So yeah, so essentially quirks, it's just a JavaScript object, whatever key, whatever value. So key, let's make key hemisphere probably, and the value would be
oh boy,
resolved from.
Okay, so the way that we're gonna have to figure this out is we're gonna have to get hemisphere, and I'm gonna do the absolute worst thing that I can think of, which is to all right. So let's actually start. We'll get country, and that's gonna be from context geo. Oh, Netlify context. Netlify context. .geo.country, right? And then what we have to do is we'll go with north equals, oh boy, I'm just gonna put a few in, y'all. I'm so sorry. Who else? Let's see, Ben's in Belgium, that's BE. Where else is everybody? We've got somebody in is it Denmark? We got folks in Mexico, I think. Is that MX, right? Okay, so that's going to be our northern hemisphere. Shout out if you're in a different country. And then in the southern hemisphere, we need more. We need okay, so Italy just got shouted out. What are country codes for southern hemisphere? We've got Australia. We've got we want New Zealand. We've got what are the AG is Argentina? What else is
Chile?
Is that CH? MX is northern hemisphere though. We got that one. So
CHL actually.
CHL. Wait, what? Aren't they all 2 character?
That's a different ISO standard. All right.
Oh no. Peru. What is Peru?
CL. That's for Chile.
CL is Chile.
Peru.
Okay. Oh boy. Peru, PE. All right. And then we're going to do, oh God. CO. Okay. Oh, here we go. Adrian, for the win. Thank you so much for all of these. Let's see. So here's, I think this is the whole list. And then I can take each of these give them a quick quote, and there we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is we're going to say your hemisphere is going to be, let's check if you are in the north, includes country, right? And then what we'll say is north, or we'll go south. You know what? Why did I need two lists of countries? I don't know, because what I just did doesn't need that at all. So we're going to do that. So by default, we'll check to see if you're in a northern hemisphere country. Otherwise, we'll put you in the southern hemisphere. And that'll also let us test, because I'll be able to drop US out and force into south so that we can see the personalization happening. So terrible code. Do not write that. If you ship that code, don't send me hate mail. But this is one very hacky way to get to that proof of concept. Do not do as I do as I say. So, oh geez. All right, so let's get this quirk in. And so now that I've run it, failed reloading, type undefined. Now you're not undefined. Man, I don't know anything about undefined is not assignable.
Your country is undefined.
Can I force it? I don't know how TypeScript works. I just booked Mac Pocock on the show to teach advanced TypeScript. There, I think we forced it. So that then, if I reload, should
we need to register. So that's edge function. We kind of registered logic, but now we need to add quirk into our system. So we need to go back from signals into quirks and actually registering it.
Oh, here, got it. Okay.
There we go. So one thing, yeah. So let's name it hemisphere, making sure public ID matches that key that we have in code, which it does. And then we can even do a list instead of text field and have list type for data type.
Oh.
And then enter pipe separated list of values. So north and colon south, and that's it.
Great.
So that's our quirk. Let's save and let's go ahead and create a signal based on it.
Okay,
or create a brand new signal.
We go to quirks. If we get hemisphere equals north, and we've got a signal.
Yep. So that means score of 50 will be added to the signal. Let's call it north hemisphere. Yeah. And save and close. And after that, all of these changes are going to be a part of our manifest. So it means we need to publish, making sure both quirks and this new signal gets into that JSON file with manifest. So let's make sure we hit publish here.
Okay.
And now let's put it to work. So we have in Canvas section, we do have our composition where we have our homepage modeled. So let's complete it. Yeah. And here we have personalization container, and that's how we configure personalization. There's two variants. One is personalized, one is default. Let's get another one, another hero. That's the only component we have.
Okay.
Friendly message.
See, it's summertime in the northern hemisphere, and so we'll do something like that. And then the description, that's some text. That's below, this text here.
Okay. It could be anything. At this point, this could be content from your headless CMS if you install an integration, and you can source content from Sanity, Strapi, Contentful, wherever. We have 14 CMSs you can source content from. We're not a CMS. This is kind of just decorative content for your component. And all we need to do is configure personalization criteria down below. When do we actually show this variant?
Oh, I gotcha.
So we already have
northern hemisphere.
Yeah, and here if we want to be pedantic, maybe we put a number here, but in this case, it will trigger if there is any score more than 0, which works for us because we should have 50 every time we resolve hemisphere.
Okay.
So that's it. Save and publish, and we should be able to.
And so then in here, we can say, because our default is going to be
All right, let's put, yeah.
Yeah, we'll go Winter Wonderland, and it's in a paragraph tag. Got it. Okay, so we'll say something like snuggle up by the fire with a hot cocoa. Right? All right, so now we've got, put this in a paragraph tag as well. So I can save.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also let's publish. There is a publish is a separate command in the dropdown. That's on the same
Oh,
save
I gotta go
button.
in here.
It's really hard to find.
Ah, got it.
There we go.
Okay, published.
There we go.
All
So now
right.
we can restart our app, and we should be able, because we need fresh manifest. We need that cycle of
Gotcha.
npm run dev again, so we can pull the latest manifest from the server. Because we really need those quirks and those signals.
Got it.
And let's see what
Let's
happens.
see if my code works.
All right. So what we see is personalized based on launch, because we already matched that signal. So we need to actually
Okay.
reset. And we have this nice facility, this red circle on the right. You can actually use that to reset
Oh, perfect.
the current things. So clear all
So,
dimensions would actually reset it to default. And then we need to trigger, so that's the default.
okay, so that's the default. And now we get, okay, so my
let's
code didn't
check out
work.
quirks. Yeah, so in the same extension, in that red extension, we should be able to see quirks as well. So we can see, we do see south in here.
Okay, so let's log. Let's log what I did, because my guess is I did something wrong. And so let's log the hemisphere, and let's also log the country and make sure that I'm actually getting that properly. So then it's reloading. There it is. And when we come out here, country, oh, it's a code. I got to get the code of the country. So country code. Object is possibly undefined.
Let's put a bang in the end. Maybe. I usually put exclamation mark at the end every time we need.
Okay, so we'll just default to US if it's undefined. How about that? Now you can't yell at me anymore, TypeScript. Okay. Oh, wait.
All right.
There we go. Okay. So now we get our summertime classics, right? And that is great. So we saw our default. We hit Winter Wonderland. We got the check-in when the check is actually coded properly. Then we end up in the hemisphere that I'm in. And that should also show down here, hemisphere north, country US, right? Perfect. So for anybody else using this, it would be wherever you are. So if you're in the southern hemisphere, it should show you the Winter Wonderland. If you're in the northern hemisphere, it should show you this Summertime Classics page. And I mean, we spent more time fixing my bugs than we did actually coding this up, right? So that's pretty fast.
And on top of that, we can extend the quirks with the standard Netlify quirks. So we actually take all this geo data from Netlify context and make them available as quirks. So we can add them to the quirks object and destructure them. I have them here in the import. So essentially using all of the Netlify geo data as standard quirk within uniform. So what we can do is bring that into quirks object.
We bring it in.
Yeah. And I think we need to destructure it, put ... in front. And that would, I think that would do it. So essentially, in addition to this custom quirk that we just created, which is hemisphere, we have standard Netlify quirks, which come with Netlify integration. So we add Netlify integration to our project. We should have additional 4 quirks, I believe, that we ship with. So
go to integrations,
let's
and
find
I'm going to do
Netlify.
Netlify.
There we go. Add to project.
Add. All right.
A bonus item, we can even track build statuses if you wanted to, but that's optional. So Quark's already installed, but this allows us that top widget to actually monitor how's your site doing in the build
Oh,
process,
cool.
set up webhooks, etc. But it
Gotcha,
requires
gotcha.
Netlify access token. Not sure if we want to expose the Netlify access token now.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do that just because it would show a token. But that is very cool. And if you were to want to create one of those, you would go to your site settings and then I think it's in here. No, where is it?
I think in the profile top right under your bubble, I think, and under your settings.
User settings. That's right. So applications, we can register access tokens. So you would do it right here. So user settings, applications, and then personal access tokens there. But we're not going to do that because you hackers would immediately wreak havoc on all of my stuff. So no, stop it. Let's jump in over here. So now we've got this set up. I'm going back to my canvas. We've got the home page. And if I go in and look at, let's just create a new one. Add criteria. Oh, no, sorry. I need to add a signal before we can do this. So I need to bail.
Exactly.
Go back to my signals, which were personalization.
Personalization. Mm-hmm.
Add a new one. And I'm going to go into my quirks. And here are all of my pieces. So this is the geo data. So I didn't need to do, well, I guess I could have done hemisphere, and then I could have put my country codes as a list as the quirk itself. Yep. Right?
Yeah, that's a little bit dangerous freeform entry.
Yeah, so I prefer doing some code, because then you'd have to remember where you entered. But where this would be really useful is like if we're running a special in like Belgium, you know, we could show a special for whatever the Belgian branch of the company is doing. And this would be really useful if you're working on like a multinational brand where you need to show like, okay, we are running a special today in all of our California stores. And we want to make sure that anybody in California who visits the site sees that this special is available. But you don't want to show it to people in New York because they're not going to get that deal. They'd call customer service. They'd be upset. This makes it really easy. You know, you come in here, you say, all right, let's show it to, what is it? Is it subdivision name, I think, would give us the state. Is it it's region or subdivision? One of these works.
Subdivision.
And that would be like CA. Okay, great. Now let's make a variation of the hero that only shows up if you're in California, right? So really, really fast to start thinking about how do you do these targeted rollouts of things, which in the past would have been like you would just the conversation would immediately stop. The engineering team would be like, no. Like we don't have time to do that. Like there's no way you gave us the 9 weeks of notice that we need to go build out a like geo-aware server system and all the DNS routing and all the other things that we would have to be able to figure out to make that work. They just immediately shut down the conversation. Whereas with this, you don't even need to talk to engineering. You can literally go and build this yourself. That's so freaking cool.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and the power just kind of begins here. Like a lot of organizations have that. This personalization engine needs fuel, right? And that fuel could come from existing services. Maybe you do have an endpoint that returns some customer visit profile data. Maybe you have segment provisioned CDP that gets you like computed traits from your visitor profile, and you want to activate that as quickly as possible. So that's because you can do fetch also from Edge Worker. You can actually bring additional elements of this visitor context and through quirks pipe it through and activate it. So if you have Clearbit is another example. We actually have integration with them. So they have reveal APIs. So based on your IP address, you get company metadata. So for account-based marketing, great. You can market to startups with more than 20 million seed round, something like that. Why not?
20 million seed round.
Those probably exist, but
Oh boy. Um, but yes, I mean, you can see really quickly how powerful this becomes, because if what we're doing here is we're registering things, like I can, using literally any system that I can hit via API, I can say, you know, my logged in user has this account ID, and we've got through our analytics, we know that they use this tool, or they are interested in these things, or, you know, like you said, Clearbit, we've got data enrichment. We can start doing some things that are truly mind boggling, and we don't have to like do a full client side re-render of the page. We don't have to move our entire site to a completely server based stack and then figure out how to scale that. We can just put this edge function together, drop in any data we want here. Like any data, right? We could figure out what their favorite dog is based on their like Instagram likes or something. Yeah. I mean, like, obviously don't do that. That would be a privacy concern, but like, you know what I mean? You can do some really interesting stuff here based on data that is publicly available, or data that they have opted into sharing with you through like being a user of your service. That is freaking cool. There's so much cool stuff that you can do with this personalization to really make apps more useful to people and to really give them more flexibility and power. It's like, it's so, I love it. This gets my gears turning so fast.
yeah. And anchored to that, our initial chat on kind of scaling back, and this is what you need a server for that. Historically, you have an API with a secret API key you cannot do it from the browser. Now you have this facility to act as your server middleware negotiator to actually do these things in a way where, you know, the browser doesn't have to. I select you the CDP mock endpoint that we built. This is like a segment-esque CDP endpoint that just returns the visitor traits based on visitor ID. So we can put it to work, and we had user 1 and user 2 programmed in there, and we can have some fun here too.
Okay, so we've got, this is okay to share on screen, this URL?
Yeah, we're actually running it on Netlify, on the Netlify function, and it kind of simulates the latency of segment API around 100, 200 millisecond time to first byte. So let's go ahead
I have duplicates here. Let's get res, and then we can do like an if res. Okay, we can console error, oops, and just continue living our lives, I guess. And then down here, we will get data equals await. Is it, it's going to give me back JSON?
Yep.
Okay. So now I've got this data. What should I pull out of this data?
Data.traits, and we should do data.traits here. And traits object contains stuff that we actually gonna put as quirks. So that will be some computed traits, something your CDP professional did and prepared. So you have this fast user profile service. And one of those traits, we can even open that request so we can actually see the payload. The one that potentially big spender is one of them. Maybe we can target and create a quirk for. And we have big spender.
Referring domain, whether or not they've been invited, what campaign they came through on. Like, this is all really interesting stuff. And then you said you set up another one for like a user ID 2.
Yep. So we have. So
here's our user ID 2
data sets.
Okay.
So maybe based on the cookie, you have the visitor identification already happening by whatever that tracker script does, right? So you pick that up from a cookie, and then you pass it through, you resolved the visitor profile traits, and then you just activated that. Like, we can keep it hard-coded, it's fine, but since you have access to whole HTTP request, you can parse cookies and get the actual user identification.
So we'd go in here, we'd go to quirks. we'd be able to add a new one, and we would say, you know, big spender, and then you know, whatever. It's a text field.
You can get a list with true and false as example. Yeah.
Okay. We've got our big spender, true or false, and then in here we'll be spreading those traits. So we'll pull that one in, and that would let us then. So we publish this. Let's go to signals. We can add a new one, and we can say if the cookie name. I'm not going to do that. If the quirks big spender is true, then what we're going to do is
We can also combine them and add another quirk, and let's say big spenders in northern hemisphere, and we can combine both quirks we've created, for example.
right. So we could do like big spenders in the US, right? Or something like that. I'm going to leave this off. Well, I guess it doesn't matter because we're hard coding these, but yeah. Okay. So we'll do that. And so if they are a big spender in the US, then we will be able to do something. So we can go to the canvas, and we can do a home page, and in the home page, can I put something under the hero that will, like if I want to put more content below, can I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a personalization, and we're going to call this big spender note, number of variations to show 2, is that right?
We this is an extra placeholder value, so these defaults to 1. But so we can put only one hero in here is fine.
Okay.
And that will.
And that one only shows up if big spender is greater than 50, which will be true. Okay. And then we'll add another one. We'll say hero, and we'll say I don't know why this default is Canadian, but you know, here we go. So what is, how do I make this, do I have to put this one below to be the default?
You got it. Default should be at the bottom. Yeah, exactly.
There it goes.
There we go.
Now we can save it, and then we can publish it. And because we're sending...
let's publish the manifest. We didn't publish the manifest with the new signal, so we need to do that.
Yes. Okay, so back to the personalization, publish. Okay, stop and restart. And this one should show us our big spender. Okay.
There we go.
Okay, big spender. And then if we change this to user ID 2, who is not a big spender, once this finishes reloading.
So we need to actually reset the value because you already had the score from previous run, right? So we
that's right. So we need to go in here,
then
clear all dimensions.
Yeah.
Close it up.
Do reload.
There we go.
Yeah. So that the coolest thing, I think, when it works without JavaScript, when you disable JavaScript in Chrome, you still get a personalized page. But it's even more impactful when we actually not in dev and in prod, like getting it deployed and then visiting this page with JavaScript disabled and still see personalization, because that happens outside of the browser context completely.
That's extremely cool. So I will deploy this. I will get it up as a link on the episode description, but we are out of time. So for everyone, make sure you go and follow Alex on Twitter. Also make sure you go and check out uniform.dev so that you can learn more of that. Where else should people go if they want to learn here? Where would you recommend they go to get more resources?
There's also Headless Creator. There's a great resource to learn on all things headless CMS, headless commerce. So amazing resources, lots of courses. So definitely highly recommend it.
Great.
Headless Creator is a part of Uniform, but is a different brand. So there's a lot of juicy content there. If you want to elevate your headless CMS, headless commerce knowledge, that's really a good one to consider.
Got it. Tim is dropping the Discord link, so I'll put that again. The reason I have to post it is that I have an automation into Discord, thanks to Aiden, that sends every link I share automatically to Discord so that it gets included in the show notes. So with that, let me do another quick shout out to our sponsors. We've had White Coat Captioning. Amanda's been here today taking down all these words. Thank you very much, Amanda. And that's made possible through the support of our sponsors, Netlify, NX, and New Relic, all kicking in to make this show more accessible to more people. Make sure that while you are on the site, you go and check out the schedule. We've got some really, really good stuff coming up here. We've got, we've got Will Johnson coming, going to teach us about Auth0 actions. I just booked Matt Pocock. We're going to do some TypeScript generics, like some advanced stuff, which I'm terrified of, by the way. Tui is coming to teach us about custom media players, which is going to be really cool. And then I also just got Max Ferreira, I think, who is going to teach us about the shared element transition in Astro so that you can build multi-page apps that feel like single page. His demo is so freaking cool. I can't wait to show it to y'all. And with that, I think we're going to call this one I'm going to call it a raging success. This was super fun. I love talking about this stuff. I'm so excited for what is possible. Do you have any parting words for the chat before we take off, Alex?
No, I had a blast. This definitely made my week. Thanks for the invite, and yeah, hope everyone has a fantastic rest of the week.
Yeah, so happy to have you here. Chat, stay tuned. We're going to go raid Ben Holmes. We will see you all next time.